Again, welcome everybody. My name is Matt with Q4Launch. Excited you are along for the ride with us on how to thrive in shoulder season. Many of us are headed into that shoulder season in our destination, so we're excited today to dive in, share some of the tips that we have found to be most successful as we work with our customers all over the world at this point. And really looking forward to sharing some tips today and hopefully challenging the way you're looking at some things and challenging the way you're looking at your marketing plan as we head into shoulder season for so many of us. So pumped to be able to do that with you all today. A couple housekeeping items. We will be using the chat panel for any questions and answers, and we'll have that question and answer time at the end of our time together today. So if you have questions as we move throughout our time, please do use the chat panel for those purposes, and I will reply to those questions at the end of our time together. We also will be sending out the recording to everyone who is registered for the webinar today. We'll be posting it to our YouTube channel, so if you want to be the first to know when it's up, you can subscribe to us at youtube.com/Q4Launch. Otherwise, we will send an email out to all the registrants probably first of next week with a copy of that recording. It takes us a little time to get that processed and get it posted and then get that newsletter out to y'all with it. So you can check that out there if you're looking for that. A little bit of information about me and Q4Launch before we dive in. If this is your first time with us on our webinar, thanks. We're glad you're here. Glad you're along for the ride. If you've been with us many times before, thanks for coming back. Glad you found these informative and entertaining. And we have developed quite a following for our webinar series and get lots of great feedback and actually future webinar suggestions from many of our attendees. So any feedback on today's webinar, any suggestions for future topics, I'd love to hear it. My email address will be on the screen at the end of our time together. Again, my name is Matt. I'm the founder of Q4Launch. We as a company were founded 7 years ago, and we focus in the hospitality industry. We call it destination marketing, but really working with boutique lodging brands. So working with bed and breakfast, boutique hotels, vacation rentals, small resorts, and love what we do. We're really passionate about marketing, really passionate about helping travelers discover the destinations that we work with. And we're going to talk a lot about how you can leverage your destination as a part of bringing people to your property or properties today. So it's going to be a big part of what we're talking about. So that's a little bit about us. We work with customers from Hong Kong to Napa Valley and everywhere in between. So we've got a great international perspective as well, with the majority of those being in the United States. So a great diverse customer base. We work with some incredible properties all over the world and are so blessed to do so. A little bit about us so you kind of know who we are and where we're coming from. And with that, let's dive into our time together today. If you've been with us on a webinar before, you've probably heard me talk about this, but it's something that we're so passionate about and believe in so strongly that I talk about it quite a bit. We blog about it quite a bit because really it's a foundational element for a lot of the strategies that we develop, and it should be a foundational element for your strategy. So hopefully if this isn't something you've heard before, you can take this and make it a foundational element of your marketing strategies going forward. But as we talk about marketing, and that's really what we're going to be looking at, is how to have a great shoulder season, comes back to a marketing challenge. We've got to get inside the mind of the vacationer. And in 2011, Google released a study that studied a lot of people, and it studied the travel industry, and it studied the way consumers plan, book, and experience travel. And what they found was that there were 5 unique stages of travel. And they released this study. We kind of grabbed onto it, and we've developed a ton of different strategies based off of what we learned from that study, which once you hear it is really common sense, but it's really important common sense because it really impacts the way you think about marketing and think about reaching your travelers or your vacationers going forward. So we're going to spend a few minutes here touching on these, and we're going to kind of touch back on these as we move throughout our time together. So what Google found was that inside the mind of the vacationer, the 5 stages of travel, the first being dreaming. The consumer, the traveler starts dreaming about the trip they want to take. You can probably relate to this. You can probably relate to seeing somebody who's kind of got that glazed look on their face because they're off in dreamland. The second is they start planning, and this is usually where they're turning to the internet. It's usually a pretty quick transition from dreaming to planning. They're starting to Google things. They're starting to check different things out. I was just talking to a buddy of mine Monday night who had gone from the dreaming to planning phase and was Googling information about ice climbing. He was all excited to become an ice climber and was trying to learn as much as he could about that and find destinations he could go do that and find places he could go stay and have those kind of experiences. So they moved from that dreaming to planning pretty quickly. They turned to the internet, of course, when they're looking for that information. And then they spend a ton of time in this planning phase, and they consume a ton of content in this phase, which is good for those of us who are using content marketing as a big part of our strategy, which we'll talk about as well. The third one, and this is probably what you think about most, and that's the booking stage. And you think about it most because most people spend the majority of their time thinking about this as they try to reach their traveler, and it's the booking stage, of course, so it's where money changes hands, so that's very valid. But if you only think about the booking stage and you only think about how to get your customer to book with you, and you ignore the dreaming and planning stage from a marketing planning perspective, you've essentially ignored 2/3 of the sales cycle. And as you're thinking about reaching travelers, that's ultimately what you're doing. You're trying to make a sale. You're trying to have great marketing that captures their attention and makes a sale. You've got to be thinking about dreaming and planning. And then when they get to the booking phase, if you've done a great job marketing to them throughout dreaming and planning, they're more likely to book with you as opposed to a competitor. The fourth is experiencing. Makes perfect sense, right? After they book it, they experience it. And that's one of the things I love most about the work that we get to do, working with so many of you in these incredible destinations and incredible properties, is you all do the experience stage incredibly well. You guys got this on lockdown, but you've got to change the way you think about that in and of itself as well, because how you impact from a marketing perspective the experience stage can change quite a bit. And then the last one there is remembering. And that's when people are looking at their photos, they're talking to their friends about it, they're remembering that great trip they had to come visit you, your property, your destination, all of that goes into that. This is where we want them to leave a 5-star review for us on TripAdvisor or whatever other review sites you might be involved with. And when Google released a study, they talked about it as kind of a linear process. And we had a breakthrough. We've been working on this for probably 6 or 12 months. And again, this seems obvious when I say it, but we had a breakthrough one day in one of our creative brainstorming sessions as a team and said, this shouldn't really be a linear process, should it? It should be a cyclical process. And that changed the way we think about things a lot, because when a consumer, a traveler, a vacationer is in that remember phase, if we do great marketing to them, we can get them to start this whole process over again with the dreaming stage. And that's a really important piece as we try to stay top of mind, to think about how do I take a consumer who has stayed with me before, who had a 5-star experience, and get them to start back at the top and get them back into that dreaming stage and move down through planning, booking, and experiencing and remembering all over again. And that's that repeat guest that's so, so valuable to you, to your business, the people that come back year after year. Maybe it's the person you're looking that's coming every year, but you want to get them to come twice or 3 or 4 times a year. Lots of different things to do that, and those are an absolute gold mine, especially as we talk about how to thrive in shoulder season, because those past guests who had a 5-star experience staying with you are the most likely guests to book with you again, and they're the easiest sale and the easiest guest to take care of when they're there, because they kind of know your routine. They know how you work. They know where things are. They know the way around. So as we look at these different stages, it's incredibly important we think about how to move our marketing to think about this and how to move the vacationer through these stages. So with that kind of as a foundation of the way we think about a lot of things, let's dive into some of our actual tips on how to thrive in shoulder season as it's just coming upon us. There is a huge trend that we're probably all familiar with. We probably all read articles on it at this point, but it's called experiential travel. People are going from a place of just looking for a place to rest their head at night. If that's all they wanted, they could get that at a Hilton or a Hyatt and probably get it at a much cheaper price than we want to offer it at. But this experiential travel thing is moving beyond that, and people are really looking for experiences that are more memorable than any other thing. We've talked about millennials on past webinars, and you've probably read a lot about them. And as a generation, they're spending more money on travel. They're spending more money on experiences than previous generations. Previous generations, it was all about the American dream and chasing the house on the hill and the Mercedes in the driveway. With our millennial travelers, we're seeing more of an investment into experiences and relationships. And that's really exciting. It's a great trend for many of us to see groups like that traveling together. But as we think about that as a lodging industry, and some of the most successful ones are doing that well, we really look at how do we create experiences. And this photo on the right is actually from one of the properties we work with. It's Ledges Hotel in Holly, Pennsylvania. And this is from a yoga retreat that they host. They host it, I think, 2 or 3 times a year, and we have worked with them. They had that concept before we started working with them, but we've worked with them and the leader of those yoga retreats and are now planning yoga retreats all over the world as a piece of what we're looking at and expanding that to help take it from a very destination focused, meaning somebody's already coming to my destination, I want to capture them, but creating demand, creating an experience for your destination by creating these experiential travel experiences, I was about to say, but I guess that's the best way to say it, and looking for different ways to do that. And some of you are probably already doing some of these things, but as we look ahead to shoulder season, huge opportunity to expand what you're doing in these arenas. Game day experiences are a huge one. We've got several customers that are close to universities, and we've worked with them on creating game day experiences. Maybe you're not close to a university, but you have a passion for your alma mater, or you're passionate about a university that may be close but might be a bit too far. So maybe that's maybe it's combining it with tickets, or maybe it's having a game day experience. If you've got a hotel or an inn, maybe it's having a game day experience in your inn or hotel and hosting some cool things there for people to rally around a common cause. If you can get people to rally around a common cause, you'd be amazed how much they'll spend. I'm always amazed. We're in the South. We're in Charleston, South Carolina. It always blows me away how much money people are willing to spend on football experiences being in SEC territory. So not to go all conference rivalry on you here, but people will spend a lot of money wrapped around game day experiences. So awesome opportunity if you're close to, or if you're a big fan of your alma mater and that's a part of your business and who you are. Talked about yoga retreats, but anything like that, wellness retreats, meditation retreats, we've seen it all. And it's an opportunity to reach a certain segment of the market. Cooking classes are an awesome way to do this, and you don't have to run these yourselves. You may say, I'm not a chef, I don't have the equipment, I don't have anything to do that. That's fine, no problem. You could host these. If you have a hotel or an inn, you could do it at your property, that's fine. But not a mile from our office, there is another business here in the Charleston area that hosts cooking classes every single day of the week. So if our office was a hotel, I could absolutely strike up a partnership with that business, that organization, and do a cooking class package, make it a whole culinary experience, and then actually have that hosted over there. So it's not even on my property. I'm just selling that as a part of a package, as part of an experience. Wine and design. Y'all have probably noticed the huge trend of these popping up. But being able to kind of create that art opportunities. And as we talk about, and that's not specifically our focus today, but as we think about the midweek booking as well, we see a huge group of retired travelers that love to rally around causes like cooking and art. Cooking, art, and food are a huge opportunity, and by offering some of those in the middle of the week, some of those midweek experiences, you can reach that retired couple that might have more flexibility in their schedule and be able to take advantage of something like that. Really cool opportunities to fill some midweek bookings, not just in your shoulder season, but any time of year with a strategy like that. And that ties down to that art classes thing as well. You know, you don't, again, have to be a phenomenal artist to do this. Maybe you partner with an artist and they get a fee per head for running those classes for you. I'm all for that. I'm all for delegating those things and not making it something that's got to be on your plate. But these are going to be unique to you. You've got to think about your brand. You've got to think about your personality. You've got to think about what works for you and what works in your destination and say, okay, how can I create experiences that tie into my destination and make that a reality as you're headed into shoulder season to communicate that about what's going on. And as you're looking at doing that, we recommend partnering with people and companies who have their own following and marketing. And this is really important because oftentimes when we're building packages or specials or promotions like this, we take 100% of the marketing responsibility as a property. And that's okay, right? But if you're promoting someone else, if you're helping them generate revenue for their business, whether it's a cooking class or an art thing or a yoga retreat or whatever, if you can find other companies, partner with other people who already have their own following and get them to mention it in their marketing, you're going to reach a segment of the market you may not have ever reached before. And that's a really cool opportunity to take their followers, get your message in front of them, and then make them your followers. Not only will you make them your followers if you're doing a great job, but you'll get the opportunity to create brand awareness for them as well. Even if they don't follow you, they may now know that you exist. So a really cool opportunity as you're thinking about who these partners might be that you work with, really be looking at that and understanding how do we bring that in and tie those good, successful partnerships together. The next tip we wanted to share with you today is to capitalize on events and festivals. This is probably something you're doing. but you've got to really think about doing a better job of this. If you're in an area with an active chamber or a CVB, a visitors bureau, a destination marketing organization, they go by all sorts of different names these days. But if you're in an area with an organization like that, hopefully they're doing a great job creating these. But if you're not, that responsibility may fall to you to really think about what is it that you need to be doing to kind of pull these festivals, pull these events together, jump on board with the ones that are already there, support those, and most importantly, create marketing around those things so that when people are looking for that, when people are coming to the area, you're the person that they find. And as you're doing that, you're telling the story of your local area. You're telling the story about what's going on in your city that's unique. What reasons do people have to come back? If you've got a guest who comes every peak season, every June, July, August, whatever your peak season is, maybe you're at a winter destination, so your peak season is actually ski season. Either way, whatever your guests that come in peak season are, give them a reason to come back in shoulder season, and you'll be surprised how many of them will do it. And here's a few ideas that you can create those experiences we talked about around earlier, fall festivals, corn mazes, pumpkin patches and carving, Thanksgiving feasts, family retreats, Christmas light displays and parades, New Year's Eve balls, so many things. And this is a short list of the hundreds of them that are out there that you could create content, you can create marketing around. You can tell the story about why somebody should spend their Thanksgiving with you. You can tell the story about why somebody should escape from the busyness of Boston or one of the major cities and spend a little bit of time at your country property, or why people should retreat to the beach and stay at your vacation rental. You can tell those stories through great marketing and give them a reason to come, and then show them the experience they're going to have. Take your 3-year-old kid through the corn maze and pick out a pumpkin and do this and do that, and you've gone from just a place to rest your head at night to, wow, that's an experience I want my family to have. I want to go there. I want to create those memories. And that's a huge way to really drive shoulder season occupancy and shoulder season bookings. I'm a Christmas junkie. You guys have probably heard me talk about that before, so I'm a sucker for anything that's marketing that Christmas experience. One of our properties we work with does a Dickens dinner, and we've helped them kind of take over the marketing of that specific event, and we've sold that out every year for like the last 3 years, and we've had to start adding dates to that. But that's awesome because they get the dinner revenue, they get the drink revenue, the bar revenue, they get the lodging revenue. It's such a huge profit center for them when in a period of time that they probably would be pretty quiet or empty otherwise. So many cool opportunities to do things like that. We've got an example here on the screen as well of how you create that content. And you can go and you can check some of these blogs out. This is actually a blog we wrote last September about Cape Cod Thanksgiving and why you should spend your Thanksgiving in Cape Cod and why you maybe shouldn't stay with your family this year, but instead come stay at the Chatham Gables Inn, one of the customers that we work with, and just kind of seeing how to leverage content in your overall marketing strategy to drive traffic, drive bookings around holidays or special events. So cool things to do there, some neat opportunities to just think about marketing a little bit differently as you're headed into this shoulder season. Here's another quick example. This is a customer in the Asheville area that we work with. We created some content around New Year's Eve in Asheville. This was last year. You see about December, you may not be able to see, but about December 7th, this blog we wrote actually got ranked. And as we moved closer and closer to New Year's Eve, we were able to sell this customer out, sold everything they had, all their availability for New Year's Eve, which you might say, hey, that's no big deal. I'm sold out New Year's Eve every year. Well, that's great and good for you, and that's exciting. Maybe you don't write a blog about it, but this customer hadn't been sold out for New Year's Eve. They had a lot of inventory. They weren't. They're outside of Asheville a little bit, so they weren't a destination where they typically got a lot of New Year's Eve business. And by creating some marketing around that, we were able to sell them out for New Year's Eve and drive 1,422 visits in less than a month from organic search. So 1,422 people found this property by Googling that term in less than a month last year as they were planning their New Year's Eve festivities. So huge opportunity, and that's the power of what we're talking about today. And yeah, you're not going to sell all 1,400 of those people, but if you sell enough to sell out, that's the name of the game, especially in a season you may not have otherwise. And that's just one example of kind of how to do that. As we look at that, and I talked a little about working with your chamber or CVB to bring these groups in, there's just a few examples of some of the major ones we've worked on: Eureka Springs Corvette Festival, Cape Cod Brew Fest, Mendocino Mushroom Festival, but looking for these festivals, looking for these events that are going on, that are attracting the type of guests that you want to have at your property, and creating content around this. This is an example of a customer of ours in Mendocino, the Sea Rock Inn, one of my favorite places, and the Mendocino Mushroom Festival. You can see they're ranked 4th in organic search for this term. And that's bringing people, helping them discover Sea Rock Inn when they're planning their trip for the Mendocino Mushroom Festival. Which sounds a bit crazy, but again, it's people are coming to town for this. We wanted to stay with us when they come to town. And to do that, they've got to discover us first. Awesome. Next thing we want to touch on, spend a lot of time there talking about events and festivals and how to leverage that. But expanding your yield management strategy. As we're headed into fall, as we're headed into shoulder season, we've got to make sure we've got a yield management strategy in place. And we're going to talk about a few things to look at as we do that. I would imagine if you're on this call, you're probably an advanced marketing thinker, and you probably have some level of yield management in place. But as you're headed into the shoulder season, it becomes more and more important. When we're running 95% occupancy, you can tend to get a bit lazy with your yield management. And my point to you would be, if you're running that high of occupancy, you probably should have had your rates higher to begin with, but that's a whole other conversation. But as you're headed into this shoulder season, this fall season, you've got to be thinking about yield management or revenue management and really saying, how do I need to adjust my pricing and my minimum stay requirements based on the season, based on the demand that we have. Yield management is essentially looking at where supply and demand come together to find the right price and minimum stay requirements. So as you're thinking about that, we see a lot of people settling into one set rate for shoulder season. And I think that's a mistake. I think you've got a lot more going on in this fall season, that you need to have more diversity in your rate schedule for that. Think about sporting events. If you are in an area with a lot of sporting events going on, you should have long ago known that calendar and been adjusting your prices for that. And this ties to that point that you see there at the bottom. And if you're already sold out for every football game that's coming this fall, if you're close to a football experience, your price was too low. So you got to think about that, make that note for next year, and raise your price now for next year, or maybe at the beginning of the year, raise your price for next football season. You only have so many opportunities to sell those rooms. And it's not unusual for rooms to triple or double, triple, or quadruple in price around major sporting events, especially if you're close to a university or something like that. Fall foliage is a no-brainer. I know you guys are all over that one. You guys probably get that one, no problem. But festivals and events as well. You've got to make sure that you're paying attention to those calendars in your area to know when to be booking those. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're near a major university, and they had this weekend in May all sold out. They're like, gosh, what could be going on this weekend in May? And there was a new general manager in place, and they were new to the area. And I said, I mean, I'm not your GM, but I would guess that you probably got the college graduation that weekend. And they looked, and sure enough, there's a college graduation that weekend. And they were just on their normal rack rate for May, which is already a peak season for them. So it was a pretty high rate, so they were happy. But a huge opportunity, a huge influx in travelers to town that are staying for 2-3 days, possibly a week, and an opportunity to command higher rates during that season because of the increase in demand. And they kind of missed out because they weren't that far out on their rates. But festivals and events are a big way to do that as well. You know, it may not have the same level of demand as a sporting event or fall foliage, but certain windows in there are going to have strong demand because of these festivals and events, assuming they're good festival events to check out. So really look at that as you sit down and look at your fall calendar. Think about where can you squeeze a little bit more margin because of the demand that's going to be coming in that season. So good opportunity to drive more revenue. And this one probably seems pretty basic, but it's, again, something we just don't see people doing all that often, and that's to invite them back. This picture may be a bit of an exaggeration, but the people who are most likely to book with you are the people that have booked with you in the past. We talked about that a little bit in the beginning of our time together today, but make sure that you're reaching out to past guests and you're giving them reasons to come back. Creating those experiences, sharing those experiences, and allowing great marketing to bring those people back and stay with you again. Think about what type of VIP experience you might be able to offer to them. You know, they're your past guests. They're going to be your most profitable, easiest guests to take care of. What could you do that's a little bit extra for them and help them realize some added value this shoulder season to come back and stay with you again? Convert that once-a-year guest to a twice or 3 times a year guest, and they'll be much, much more profitable. And as we do that, we're thinking about reminding, right? I mean, we're reminding them of that great experience, which ties back to our remember and starts that dreaming stage all over again to get them to come book with us. But you've got to take care of these people and treat them like the VIPs that they are and invite them to come back. As we look at this, I mean, we've talked a lot about the role marketing is going to play in all of this as we kind of set some strategies going forward. I was actually visiting one of our properties probably 2 years ago now, and I was just kind of strolling through the main street in their little downtown area, and I walked in a little shop with my wife and saw a T-shirt that said, "If at first you don't succeed, skydiving is not for you." And we shared a good laugh because we had actually just gone skydiving and thought it was a pretty clever T-shirt. But if at first you don't succeed in this, if at first you don't succeed in marketing, try it again. It doesn't mean it's not for you. Sometimes I travel quite a bit, I speak quite a bit at conferences, and people come up to me and be like, what's the #1 thing I need to be doing from a marketing perspective? Well, it used to be pretty hard for me to say what's the #1 thing. I've really gotten to a place where the number one thing you should do from a marketing perspective is be consistent. The absolute secret to success in marketing is consistency. Marketing as a whole isn't rocket science, but what happens is you do some great marketing, which eventually leads to bookings, and you get busy taking care of those bookings, so you stop doing marketing, and then you stop getting as many bookings, and you're constantly living on this roller coaster of marketing, servicing guests, marketing, servicing guests, marketing, servicing guests. And if you can get to a place where you can figure out how to do marketing consistently, whether you're tasking somebody on your staff with that, or you're time blocking 5 hours a week of your own time to do that, or you're working with a marketing partner you trust and drives results, however you accomplish that, figuring out how to get it done consistently is the most important thing you can be thinking about as you're headed into this fall season. And of course, there's lots of other things here we're going to look at. Writing great blogs. I've shared with you several examples of how blogs can drive traffic and drive bookings for you. Cape Cod Brew Fest, we've heard some great success from working on that project with one of our properties. Lots of opportunities by writing great content, because when people go from dreaming to planning, as I talked about with my buddy who's going ice climbing or anything really, what happens is they turn to Google and they ask Google about it, and when they ask Google about it, they need to find you. They need to find your property, your business, and know that you exist when they're planning their trip to Mount Rainier to go ice climbing, or when they're planning their trip to Cape Cod for Brewfest, or whatever it is. They need to know you exist. They need to find you and discover you in that way. Sending twice monthly email campaigns is a big part of that. You guys have probably heard us talk about that if you've been with us before, and the power and effectiveness of email marketing. But commit to sending 2 a month, and make sure those are great campaigns with engaging content and lots of links to bring people back to your website. That's the #1 way you can communicate with past guests and give them reasons to come back and visit with you. Email marketing. Write that content, put it on your blog, and then use email marketing and social media to disseminate that message. But with social media anymore, Facebook's limiting your reach. So email marketing is going to be the majority of way you can get that message out effectively to your past guests. And of course, we talked about social media there, but updating your followers is a huge reason that growing your following is so important. We put a big emphasis on growing a social media following and talk about that quite a bit. But if you're not growing your following, you're not growing the audience you have an opportunity to reach when you do put a message out there. And then the last piece is that last touch you have with a guest, that last in-person touch you have, and encourage them to come back when they're checking out. I have, of all the places I've stayed, I've never had anybody hand me a fall itinerary at checkout. And I've never even told any of our customers to do this, because I just thought about it as I was preparing for this webinar and writing our content. But at checkout, especially right now, and we're still kind of on the edge of peak season, we've got a pretty full place for the most part still in most places we're working. Your checkout is your opportunity to tell people why they should come back this fall. It doesn't need to be a pushy, salesy thing at all. It just should be maybe a one-page or a handout or a reference to your blog that says, hey, as you're thinking about this fall, here's some great events to come back and check us out. And maybe you tie it to some VIP offer, a free bottle of wine at check-in, or a free upgrade, or a $25 off this, or a free massage, or whatever. Have some added value for them as a VIP and coming back and staying with you and telling them why they should. And you have their attention at that moment. You have that opportunity to put something in their hands. A great way to do this too with checkout emails. I know many of you probably send checkout emails, if not all of you, but that's a great way to update your checkout email seasonally so that you can put upcoming events in there and link back to your blog and so forth. So great ways to think about checkout a little bit differently that can have a significant impact on your shoulder season. And then this is something we're excited about that we're as a company going to be launching a lot of initiatives on as we head into this end of year time, and that's paid time off campaigns. As I was looking at this and kind of finding some cool images, I love this out of office. You know, I'd love if I emailed somebody and this was the out of office message that I got. But think about you, if you're a beach destination, obviously this is perfect for you. If you're not, but find that photo that's relevant to you and create paid time off campaigns. I don't remember the exact percentage. I've heard it at different times, but a huge percentage of PTO time or paid time off time goes unused and gets lost. And that's a huge opportunity to capture people. And as we're looking at midweek bookings, which is something we get asked a lot about, building campaigns around PTO is specifically going to help with those midweek, because the weekend you don't need to use PTO for, right? I mean, they're already coming on the weekends. They're not using PTO to do that. But if you can create a PTO campaign, by its very nature, it's going to create midweek bookings because they have to take off Monday through Friday, assuming they have a typical Monday through Friday job, to be able to use PTO. Otherwise, it's a Saturday, Sunday, and they're not using it anyways. So as you're headed into shoulder season, as we're headed to the end of a calendar year, think about some PTO campaigns and what you might be able to do creatively there. And know something we're going to be doing a lot of as we head into fall as well to drive significant shoulder season bookings for the properties we work with. The last one here is gift certificates. Really look at gift certificates as an opportunity to do a couple things. One is it creates cash flow for your off-peak times. I'm not an accountant, although my dad's a CPA and I got QuickBooks for Christmas when I was 17, which shows what my entrepreneurial path has been like. So you got to take this up with your accountant, but the bottom line of a gift certificate is you get paid for it when it's bought, but you don't recognize that revenue, and there's some other complications there from an accounting perspective. But bottom line is it's money in the bank today. You get that money in your account today when you sell that gift certificate. So it can create cash flow in off-peak times. Of course, then you're probably going to be fulfilling that in more of a peak time. But it's also a great way to have Black Friday or Cyber Monday campaigns. Lots of people do these, but if you haven't done a Black Friday or a Cyber Monday campaign, the screenshot there is one we've run for one of our large hotel associations we work with. So you can kind of see some of the things we've done there, and the details obviously aren't there. Lots of details kind of make it what it is and make or break the success of a campaign like that. But absolutely an opportunity to do this for your own property or so forth. And then the next piece here is that you're having the opportunity to give the gift of an experience, right? Especially as you head into gift-giving season, whether that's birthdays, which is all year round, or it's Christmas coming up or whatever. Huge opportunity to tell people this Christmas, give the gift of an experience. Show them what that experience is going to be like when they're actually there, right? Use real photos, help them picture themselves in that experience. But instead of giving a Bluetooth speaker, or instead of giving a fruit loaf or a fruit cake or whatever, that crappy gifts you always get, give the gift of an experience this year. Give the gift of travel. And that's a really cool thing. Lots of slogans you can pull around that. Give the gift of time together, give the gift of romance, lots of cool stuff you can do there. But it's all about that experience. And this is one of the great facts about gift certificates, and few people know this, but historically gift certificates have a 70% breakage. And what that really means is that 30% of gift certificates aren't used. So if you're going to sell $10,000 worth of gift certificates, you can kind of assume that $3,000 of that are not going to be used. And why that's important is because you can actually give a discount on a gift certificate. The consumer thinks they're getting a great value. You can drive those sales in a Black Friday, Cyber Monday style campaign and still come out ahead. If you give a 15% discount and 30% of them don't get used, you're still getting 15% ahead on that transaction. So it's a really significant opportunity to drive cash flow, drive profitability, and drive business in a season you may not have it otherwise. So really be thinking about that as we're headed into this shoulder season as well. So just a couple tips there on gift certificates and how to think about that. Maybe think about that a little bit differently this year than you had before. So one of the things, if you've been with us before, you've heard me give this spiel a little bit, but one of the things I love about what I get to do in talking and speaking and teaching is getting people excited about marketing, getting them fired up. And the best speakers that I have seen as I've traveled and heard other people speak, you get fired up, you take all these notes, and you go out of the room or you come off the webinar ready to take the world, but then you fail to take a next step. And as we look at this, and as we commit so much time to education in the industry, what I want for the people that learn from our education is always know what their next step is and kind of help them have that jumping off point. So with that in mind, we end almost every webinar with an opportunity for you to take a next step and say, okay, what can I do to take a next step today? And today, that next step for you, if you're there, if you're in that place, you're fired up, you're excited, but you're not quite sure where to get started, you're kind of on the edge of your seat, is to request our 1-month marketing plan template. Essentially what this is it's a template with some ideas that go a little bit deeper than we were in today to actually be able to start implementing many of the things we've learned in our time together today on the webinar. So be able to start breaking those down into blog topics that are going to drive fall bookings, talking about email campaign content ideas. You know, what should I really be sending out in those? We're going to give you some ideas to do that. We're going to take a look at that search engine optimization analysis and make some keyword recommendations based on shoulder season and your destination specifically. And then also in this template, there will be some social media tips and tricks on things that we've seen help our posts go viral in social media to attract visitors. And we've got lots of examples. You can see examples how we blogged about that. I think we actually put a blog up this week or last on that topic about helping things go viral. So check that out. If not, I know there was one a couple months ago we wrote. So if you're looking to take a next step, this 1-month marketing plan template is absolutely free of charge. We will send out an email afterwards with a form you can fill out. Just lets us know you're interested, and then we can get with you to get you that information. And we'll share some tangible advice with you as a part of this. So really cool opportunity to take a next step, totally free of charge. One of the members of our team will connect with you to get that going. So with that, let's dive in. You have questions, we have answers. Let's dive in. My contact information is on the screen there, so you can always email or call me. But I know I've got some questions here in the chat panel, so let me bop over here and answer those. If you haven't asked your question yet, now would be a great time to do that. You can put it right there in the chat panel, and I'll be happy to answer those questions for you. All right, let me scroll through here, see what we've got. All right, what does PTO mean? PTO, it stands for paid time off. The question actually was, what does PPO mean? But I think you probably just misheard me as I talk rather quick, and it's actually PTO, paid time off. So that's kind of an abbreviation people use for that. So great question, though. Appreciate you letting me know to clarify on that. How do we write a great blog post? Appreciate that question, Susan. That's pretty involved. We can teach a whole webinar on that topic in and of itself, but real quick, the answers that I would give are start with a keyword in mind, like a festival or something like I showed earlier. Write 500 to 700 words. Make sure you're repeating your keyword 3 to 4 times throughout that blog post. It's in the URL and it's in the blog post title. And promote that as many places as you can. Put it out in social media. Put it in your email campaign. Talk to your guests about the blog that you wrote. So lots of opportunities to kind of promote those blogs and get those out the door. Another question here from John about email marketing. How often is too often on email marketing campaigns? John, that's a question we get a lot, actually, and there's not a cut and dry answer. I mean, I've bought some stuff from Overstock.com, and I get probably 2 or 3 emails a day from them. I think that's probably too often for most of us on the call today, but I don't unsubscribe because I buy from them every now and then. So I stay on their list because I want to know what's going on. I don't read every email, but I read most of the subject lines and then decide whether I'm going to click. So we have found that twice a month is kind of a sweet spot of balancing often enough, but not too often. But the main thing you really got to look at there is your engagement on your email campaigns. If you start sending more often, does your unsubscribe rate go up? Does your click-through rate go down? Does your open rate go down? And kind of looking at that and balancing that. But 2 times a month is a good rule of thumb, and you can get much more advanced. If you have a database of 100,000 or more, you can get really advanced and do some cool behavior-based or segmentation-based email campaigns where you can send a lot more emails more frequently to a much more specific group. So hopefully that answered your question there and got you going down that track. Question from Julie, VIPs for annual festival. I think I could raise rates, but wonder about doing that with repeat customers. Great question, Julie, and something we get a lot as we talk about yield management. You've got to decide for yourself. What I tell people is that that you may, if somebody complains about it, if a repeat customer complains about it, you may, accommodate them by giving them the traditional rate that they're used to. But honestly, I probably wouldn't. I would just say, hey, our costs are changing all the time, demand's changing all the time. We want you to have a great experience. We want you to stay with us, but we've got to be able to adapt to the marketplace as well. Most people understand that. They're going to be okay with it because they want you to be successful. They want to see you succeed. So most people are going to be okay with it. But for every one person that complains, you've probably got 20 people that are just going to book it and not think twice about it. Unfortunately, sometimes we focus more often on the one person that complains than the 20 people that didn't do that. We have a customer who had that same concern. We implemented yield management for them probably about 3 months ago now, and we got an email from them about a month in, and they said there was nobody more skeptical about yield management than us, and you guys have made believers out of us. And that's just a little story on how yield management can really work, but I would tell you, Julie, give it a shot before you shoot it down. And you'd be surprised how many of your repeat customers are just going to book it and move on and not think twice about it. But you will. You'll have a couple of people complain, and then you can decide about how you want to handle those. So hopefully that answers your question, Julie. Question here from Kathleen. I'm located in a summer resort area, and not much happens in the fall and early winter season. It seems as though the C2C focuses only on summer and is tired by the time summer ends. Any suggestions on how to encourage additional events and festivals? That's a tough question. It's an uphill battle, especially if you got a COC that just doesn't really have their act together. In my opinion, they've got it wrong. If you're a heavy summer destination, you're already booked out summertime anyways. Summer is not the time you need fall festivals. The shoulder season is when you need those festivals. So I would maybe talk to them about maybe moving some of those dates around to try to push things into the shoulder season a bit if you're already going to be booked out in the summer. And then as far as encouraging other stuff, you got to decide, how much do you want to take on your own. If your COC is not doing their job, or CVB or DMO, to make that relevant to everybody, if they're not doing their job, you got to decide, okay, is this something I'm willing to do? I'm willing to invest my own time in, or not? Do I not have enough time? We know a lot of our customers that sit on boards and different things to help make all of that a reality. It is a huge investment in time, and you've got to decide if that's something that you want to spend your time on, if it's relevant and important enough. But if you don't have that, lots of other things to really look at. I mean, we talked about many other examples, be it cooking classes, yoga retreats, art classes, art walks maybe that are already going on. I mean, anything already going on you can really tie into and connect with and give people a reason to come visit you. So I see your comment back there, Kathleen. Exactly. Yeah, they're not doing their job. Unfortunately, we see that all too often. A lot of those government people can kind of just get fat and lazy. It's probably terrible to say. It's something I'm recording, but it's too late, and I'm not running for president, so I can make comments like that, I guess. But happy to hang out and answer a few other questions. I think that's all we've got in the chat panel, so thank you for those questions. We'll hang out a few more minutes here and answer anything else that pops up. But do as you're kind of processing our conversation today, think through that 1-month marketing plan template. I think it'd be a great tool for many of us to be able to kind of set our plans into motion and take a next step today and make sure we don't fall behind. So I appreciate the kind comments there in the chat panel as well. Thanks to everybody who is leaving those. I'm glad to know that they've been beneficial for you. So thanks, everybody. We will be doing a webinar early September. We're actually doing a webinar on a little bit about more of what we do. We've had a lot of people asking us very specifically to do a webinar on that. So something we didn't think we would do one on. But keep an eye on your inbox for that. It's going to be early September. We're going to teach a webinar on who we are, which is going to be cool, and dive into that a little bit. And in late September, we're looking at another webinar, possibly with some partners in the industry, on how to market to millennials. So something we're really excited about. I'm really excited about. A topic I'm pretty passionate about, being that I am a millennial. I'm kind of on that threshold. Some people don't believe that I'm a millennial, but I'm hanging on to that term, hanging on to my youth there. But how to reach my generation, get them to come and stay at your property. So I'm going to share some cool insights, so watch your inbox for that late September. You can always check us out on youtube.com/Q4Launch, tons of our other webinars there, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Q4Launch. You can subscribe to our email newsletter on our website as well. We got tons of ways to get connected and get great content and great suggestions from us. So check us out, and by all means, if there's anything I can do, please do reach out. We'd be happy to answer your questions and help you as you're kind of getting your marketing things going. So thanks everybody for your attendance. With that, we will sign off.